major headlines around the business world this past week was the fact that the U.S. administration has taken a 10% stake in Intel. Well, this raises a lot of questions about the role of government, about where we're headed as a country, because this is really, doesn't have a lot of precedent in this country and kind of goes against a lot of established norms, for better or worse. This was a continuation of the previous administration gave Intel a major financial incentive, right? Kind of part and parcel with the goal of rebuilding the chip industry in the United States, right? We all remember COVID, right? I mean, that wasn't a lot of fun. So one of the policies and strategic initiatives has been to rebuild the domestic chip industry. Well, this has a fancy name that, economists talk about all the time, and that's industrial policy, right? I think that really was the goal of this. And this is the ultimate question to watch is this going to be a continuing trend? Are we going to see more industrial policy as we're kind of in the post-COVID age of, where globalization is pulling back a little bit, revamping and rethinking our supply chains and our own sovereign business interests? Industrial policy really was studied and really much more talked about in the late 19th century, right? Countries like Prussia, which then became Germany, the United Kingdom, France, they really instituted industrial policy, right? To organize our economies, to work with industries, sometimes to directly support industries that dovetailed with their national and sovereign interests to make them a stronger country. Well, in the post-World War II era, the Bretton Woods era, the era of hyper-globalization, right, many countries kind of took the opposite policy and entered the world market and to trade and use the law of comparative advantage to reorganize their economies. Well, I think we've seen a major jumping off point, especially with COVID. Industrial policy, again, was kind of introduced really big time in the previous administration, and it still continues today because, like a lot of these trends we've talked about, whether population changes, whether economic changes, trade policy changes, the world is just a different place in this post-COVID world. Okay, so let's talk about how this affects agriculture. In my opinion, one of the biggest areas that industrial policy is going to affect agriculture is in the soybean crush and the sustainable aviation fuel space, right? These biofuels. In the big, beautiful bill, the provision for biofuels 45Z was renewed, was given more years, and that's an incredibly positive development for agriculture. There's up to 300 million more bushels of soybeans that'll be crushed over the next few years by these new plants, and potentially upwards of 400 million more bushels of corn that could be crushed over the next few years because of those plants as well. I had a friend, I was at breakfast the other day getting coffee, ran into him in a hotel, and he said, what are we going to do with all this corn? Well, I think in the long-term plan, one of the positive developments is that we're going to see industrial projects like this really help to solidify and maintain our ag sector. Because never forget, the U.S., our huge advantage we have, we're food independent, we're energy independent, we can produce a lot of capital, we still attract a lot of capital, right? We can defend ourselves, we're fairly technology self-sufficient. This country has so much going for it. And industrial policy, again, is it an answer to the post-COVID world? I don't know, we'll see. But in my opinion, it's going to be a positive development for agriculture. I'm rooting very, very hard. I love the energy from grain industry. And again, let's keep an eye on this, and we'll see if we have more examples of industrial policy as we move forward.